Hey everybody, Chris with Decoding Cocktails here, and I'm guessing you're here to learn about margaritas. And we're going to make two of them in just a minute. We're going to make a traditional and what's called the Tommy's margarita. But before we get into that, I think we also need to talk about where bad margaritas come from. And there's a lot of cooking analogies here. So as the quality of food in this country has elevated, one of the things that I think we can sometimes make the leap from is when we use an artificial flavor versus a natural flavor. The quality of things tend to go down if we're using artificial. And so sweet and sour mix, the first thing you need to know if you want to make a reliably good quality margarita is we're not using sweet and sour mix. Sweetness and sour mix before industry turned them into shelf-stable products is some form of sweetener, whether that's a simple syrup or agave nectar, and a fresh squeezed lime juice. The other problem about bottled lime juice, if you're using that, is when you squeeze a lime, it's initially sour. It's very sour, but over the course of a couple of days, it moves from sour to bitter. And at that point in time, the drink begins to become upset. And in order for a drink to balance out better, you're often going to need more sugar, which one not only ramps up the calorie content, but second, also can really still upset the flavor. So fresh lime juice, avoid all that cheap sweet and sour mix. And then the other thing to think about before we even get to tequila, if you're making a traditional margarita, often they'll call for some form of triple sec. And one of the things that I find is very common for a lot of people is that they might buy a great tequila, but because one triple sec might be $7 and one might be $30, $23 discount, hell yeah, I'm in. The big thing about bottom shelf triple sec is these are orange liqueurs. And when you move into the bottom shelf stuff, what you're typically going from is using orange peel and natural orange flavor to using synthetic flavors. You're using cheaper booze. So this is why triple secs like Cointreau, this guy is called Joseph Cartron, there's the brand Giffard. Making that investment is really important. One of the cooking analogies that's out there is a dish is only as good as its worst ingredient, and if you're using really cheap triple sec, it often, more than not, will really spoil the cocktail. So a traditional margarita has 4 ingredients. Blanco tequila, which again, you're going to want to look for a bottle that says 100% agave on it, is kind of one of those big markers. On our tequila page, there's a lot of signs to help you go even deeper, but you're going to look for a silver or what is traditionally called a Blanco tequila. We've got our tequila, we've got our triple sec, we've got a little bit of lime juice, and our sweetener. So we're going to build that, and then we're going to talk about what is called a Tommy's margarita. So here's the recipe that I've stolen, because that's what the best artists do, from the lovely restaurant Leyenda in New York, which is unfortunately now closed. So we're going to need 1.5 ounces of our tequila. We're going to get 3/4 ounce of our triple sec. Perfect. Come on, come on. Great. Bang, bang. We're going to get 3/4 ounce, so 3/4 of our triple sec and of our fresh lime juice. And then at Leyenda, they often would just use a traditional 1-to-1 water to sugar simple syrup. So I'm going to add about 1/4 ounce of simple syrup right here. 4 ingredients, that's it. Now, we're going to lay out what's called the Tommy's margarita and talk about where that came from. So there's actually a restaurant called Tommy's in the greater San Francisco area. And when tequila's quality really began to ramp up 25 years ago-ish, a gentleman named Julio Bermejo was like, hey, I don't want tequila to have to compete with triple sec, which can be very, very lovely. I want it to be out front. So he created for their restaurant, Tommy's, what is now known as the Tommy's margarita. So I'm going to grab 2 ounces of my tequila again, right here, like so. Perfect. I need a whole ounce of my fresh lime juice. And then he calls for agave nectar. You could also do a simple syrup, or you could do 3/4 to 1 ounce of simple syrup. This is a little bit thicker, so I'm going to grab about 1/2 ounce of my agave nectar right here. Now, one final thing before I go any further. A common accoutrement, if you will, for a lot of margaritas is salt. Salted rims can be a lot of fun. It is also, admittedly, it's a pretty intense element right here. So one of the things that recommends, it's interesting, What salt actually is it's a flavor enhancer. Think about French fries before and after salt, right? So one of the things you can do for a more balanced thing, and also when I'm making a margarita at home, unless I'm on the back patio, I don't want salt kind of all over the place, which I find is what happens. So what I'll often do is just take a little pinch of salt and actually drop it in here. And what it does, like what it does with your French fries, is it helps to actually amplify the flavor of the cocktail. Now, we're going to get into one of the most easy elements to go ahead and overlook at home, which is shaking a cocktail. One of the things that's interesting is if you think about the difference between heavy cream and whipped cream, the big difference between the two is just air whipped into the cream. When we shake a cocktail, the booze is going to become softer, the lime will become less sour. So if you just take these ingredients and pour them over ice, the margarita is actually going to drink hotter and more sour. So this is where we need to, at this point, to grab our ice. I'm going to grab a little loud here for 1 second. Perfect. Great. All right. Oh, we're at home. There's ice everywhere. If that doesn't happen to you when you're at home, then you're doing it wrong. All right, so we're gonna grab our 2 shakers right here. Give it a good shake for about 5 to 10 seconds, okay? Okay, now if you've got a cocktail shaker that looks like this, you might be like, how does this bad boy open up? You give it a good squeeze right here, and then you pop it, and that kind of helps knock it into that ledge right there. That wasn't a good demonstration. Squeeze and pop, just like that. Margaritas are often served on the rocks. And so for that angle, you can just go ahead if you want and just give these guys a pour right into your rocks glass right here. Voila. From there, of course, you can always trim up a little lime if you need it, like so. Give it a little slit down the middle right here so we can kind of rest on the rim of a glass, like so. But voila, that's the important elements you need to know about making a margarita at home. Shaking it using good quality ingredients, doesn't have to be expensive ones, and this is the ticket to a great margarita. Enjoy.